Perfect. Good evening, everyone. We start today's program with greetings of peace and prosperity. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be posted on our website.
Yes.
Let me begin by introducing myself and our team. I, Yuvesh Bahati, will be your host. Arshad Khwaja, Hassan Shah, and Mustafa Siddiq will be moderating questions for today's program. Please simply use raise hand features as they will be called upon. Let me take this opportunity to thank all our UAF members who are present here today. Without your support, we would not be able to drive this initiative forward. For those that are joining us for the first time, United American Foundation is a public advocacy group based in Harford County. We are a nonpartisan entity that strives to equip citizens of our county with unity in amplifying political voice. Our vision is to strengthen residents with full awareness of political process to make an educated choice at the time of voting. For that purpose, we have started a virtual series called Getting to Know Your Representative. I would also like to inform all our members that we are in need of volunteers and news analysts. For those that are interested, please contact Hassan for more information. Today, we are honored to have two-term state delegate Marianne Lisanti as our guest. Born in Havre de Grace, Marianne attended Havre de Grace High School and is a graduate from College of Notre Dame. Before being elected to Maryland General Assembly, Marianne earned public trust while serving two terms as member of Harford County Council. As council member, she was a strong voice for economic development. She passed landmark bills concerning school construction and childhood obesity. Marianne has volunteered her time and expertise to serve on various local boards and commissions. She was appointed by then President Barack Obama to the Chesapeake National Historic Trail Advisory Board, the first water-based trail in the United States. Governor O'Malley and Governor Hogan have appointed her to serve as Vice Chairman of State's Growth Commission, a role she continues to fulfill. Marianne has a deep commitment to helping people and organizations identify problems, barriers, and guide them to achieve their defined mission. She's a small business owner. She lives in her childhood home along with her longtime life partner, John. Without any further delay, let's welcome our state delegate, Marianne Lisanti. Marianne, floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. And first, let me say, Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you tonight and talk about our community, our hopes and our dreams, and what we want to see our future like here in Harford County. So thank you so much for that opportunity. I don't need to give much of an introduction of myself because you've done a fine job of doing that. And my purpose here tonight really is to listen, to deeply hear the concerns and the challenges that you are facing. Now, since COVID-19, our world has had a cataclysmic change. There's been a sea change in the way we do everything, the way we interact, the way we teach our children, the way we work, the way we sell products, the way we live, and for many of us, the way we eat. So everything in our life has really turned upside down. For some, there's been blessings. There's been more time for families. I know even in my own neighborhood, I've watched children out playing for the first time in many years. I see dads who have the opportunity, because they may be working at home, to go out and draw on the sidewalk and do for hopscotch. I've seen mothers and fathers cook together and take their children shopping to. I know a lot of people that have grown gardens. I'm a gardener myself, and who have learned to grow some of their food. But then we also know that there's been so many challenges, so many challenges for business owners, for landlords, for renters, for people that found themselves unemployed, not for any fault of their own. So we are in a very challenging time, and it has really truly been my priority throughout this to be that helping hand or that guiding force to anyone in the community in need. And so that's really where my focus is. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here with you tonight and have a conversation.
Absolutely. Arshad, you want to take the floor?
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for that introduction and synopsis of your understanding of life, I would say. So let's stick with this topic of the epidemic. Obviously, it's very important for us to listen to everyone and to accommodate everyone as much as possible. But in life, as we become adults, one of the things we realize is that we have to make decisions. You take either one road or another. And in terms of the vaccines, what is your stance on the current available vaccines that have been approved by the FDA?
What is my position on it? I've taken the vaccine. I have encouraged people to take the vaccine. I mean, as a matter of fact, I was probably one of the, along with the first responders, we in the legislature were offered the opportunity very early on, like in January, to take it. And I have to tell, and to be very honest about it, I thought long and hard myself about whether it was the right thing to do at that time, given what we knew, and at that time, what we didn't know. And I felt very strongly that if anybody should take it, public officials should take it, because our government said it's safe. Our scientists worked very, very hard, and that has gotten lost in all of the discussion. We truly have created a vaccine that has never been seen in all of mankind. A world pandemic I mean, it was terrible and a lot of people died, but we stopped its trajectory of killing people really in its tracks in a year. That is a feat of modern science and of mankind. So I think that one of the things I'm very regretful about is that leaders, and I consider myself a small-time leader, I guess, but we did not instill confidence in the public. Our leaders have failed to set the stage for what really was going on. I don't think a lot of people really understood in the very beginning that this was happening around the world, that it was extremely unknown and where we needed to be. So we're behind the 8 ball. I'm doing it. And so, my position is everybody that can take it should take it. And if you don't take it, then you have to recognize that there are consequences for not taking it, depending upon what you do, and for some people, the consequences are very minor. If you work at home and don't interact with the public, then there real is limited consequences. But if you are in, let's say, a healthcare field, it's a little challenging to me for people that don't, unless they have a medical reason not to take that, which I would not substitute my opinion for that of a doctor, but it's concerning to me that people in the medical field, some, not all, feel that this is somehow an infringement on their rights not to be vaccinated. Because there's one thing about civil rights that we all have to remember. We all have rights in this country, right? But my rights stop where yours start. And if you take that concept and apply it to everything, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the contact that we have with one another, of course, in America, we have civil rights, we have freedoms, but you don't have the freedom to have a negative effect on somebody else, because that hurts their freedoms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for elaborating on your perspective on the vaccine. I'll open the floor to anyone else who wishes to ask a question for Marianne.
So I do have a couple of questions that were emailed to us and texted to us. I'm going to read one of the question from one of our community member. The question goes, Marian, you were part of the early childhood committee as the Board of Education is moving forward with introducing more pre-K options in already overcrowded schools. How do you propose mitigating the funding and capacity issues?
Mm. We passed the landmark Kerwin bill 2 years ago, which is going to provide that funding. That funding is in place. Some people tell you it's not, but it is. I'm on the committee. It is in place for the next multiple years. And the funding will follow the child, which is very, very important because the child, whether no matter what school they go to, they need to have the proper funding for their individual educational success. One of the things that I think is also important to understand is that each Board of Education controls at least half of their budget. And so there are enormous opportunities for specialized programs within our Harford County Public Schools to address the needs of our community. One of the things that I think is very important about Maryland education is that we have, although the state has standards and we establish those, and that's why we pay about 50% of the funds back to the local jurisdictions. But there's also the local autonomy of the Board of Education to establish priorities. And I think that it's very important for us not to lose sight of the fact that if there are needs not being met at our local school system, our school system in Harford County is very well funded. Our teachers may not see the benefit of that, but our system in itself is well funded. And if there are particular curricular activities or curriculum that is not being offered across the board, then we need to know about that, and that needs to be addressed.
Thank you for that. I believe Yashar had a question as well. Yashar, did you want to go ahead with the question?
His mic's, he did what I did. His mic's.
You may be muted, yes.
He's driving as well. So,
okay.
So does anybody else have a question at this time?
Wish,
hello, can you hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
No. Hi, this is Yashi.
Hey, Yashi.
I was driving. Sometimes there's some background noise. Yeah, I had a question. Going off of what you just mentioned regarding the education.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're part of the Maryland Cybersecurity Council.
Yes.
And so, with regards to all the ransomware and the cybersecurity incidents that have been increasing, and from last year's incident at Baltimore County Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you, especially with the pandemic, about the shift to online sessions, handing out laptops, makes it all the more important to make sure that the safety of the students' information is sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you ensure that our kind of public school system in our county has enough resources and support to manage that security risk?
Sure. Well, that security risk isn't just new for me. Back in the day when I was on the county council, one of the things that I did was I put supplementary funding in the budget for our computer network and for our cybersecurity in the school system. So that's been an issue that's been on my radar for a long time. Specifically with the Baltimore County issue, I had requested that Baltimore County come to the Cybersecurity Council and talk about the hows and whys and whats of the ransomware attack. From that, I came up with an idea, which we actually were able to. I was going to do it as a bill, but it ended up that we were able to do it within the Cybersecurity Council. So sometimes when you find a solution to something, piece of legislation isn't always the best way if you can do it without having to go through that process. And what that was in the state, in the state government, we have cybersecurity experts. We have an entire division that is responsible for ensuring that our networks are secure. However, that is not made available to our local governments. And I'm not only talking about our county governments, but we have 157 municipalities in the state of Maryland. Many of them do not have the expertise to update their equipment, and because that's a major key sometimes, is keeping your equipment maintained and making sure that you're on top of every update and every virus that's out there and things like that. And a lot of them don't have that. So we were able to rearrange some things at the state level so that they could use the experts in the state if as almost on call, very much like we do with, let's say, a fire. If there's a big fire in Harford County, and it's in one area of the county, and they send their fire equipment, if they can't put out the fire themselves, we have mutual aid. So another fire company from another community can come help them put the fire out, right? So my idea was, why don't we do that for cybersecurity at the state? And so we are implementing that right now. I think that we have to, I think the conventional knowledge, the conventional wisdom is that you pay ransom. I have a problem with that. Why would you pay criminals to continue to, and I understand the cost benefit of, well, it's going to cost more money. Well, think about that. I mean, if I own a store and you keep stealing from me, and you're only stealing bubble gum and whatever, I shouldn't call the police because it's going to cost me a lot more money to have you arrested and prosecuted. That logic to me is not sensible.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that question. Glad to hear tackling that.
I think Mustafa has his hand up. Mustafa, you want to go next?
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear me? Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Marianne, thanks again for joining us tonight. My name is Mustafa Sadiqa. We spoke a little bit before we started recording.
Yes.
So my question for you regarded the state redistricting. So over the past few months, I had the pleasure of serving as chair of the county's redistricting commission, and that was quite eventful. I guess I was hoping, could you elucidate a little bit what's happening at like the state level? I'll be completely honest with you, I have not really kept up with the state level redistricting. Could you give us a quick update, and then what your thoughts are on the process?
Absolutely, and thank you for your service. Having the last time we did redistricting, I was on the county council, and so I'm very familiar with your work and how difficult it is to try to please everybody. So thank you very much for that. I think you've done a fine job. The state, there's a lot of redistricting going on. That there's sort of redistricting going on in our school system, right? Which is going to be managed by the Board of Education. We have countywide redistricting, which you just reported out on, and that the county council will vote on very shortly. I think they have a public hearing coming up this week or next week on that. The state redistricting is, let me explain the time frame and basically what's going on. First, the Governor Hogan appointed a bipartisan commission to look at redistricting. He did something very different than previous governors have done. In his executive order, he said that he wanted a report from this bipartisan commission that establishes single member House districts. Okay, let me repeat that: single member House districts. And I'll come back to that for a second. So his commission has been meeting for about the last 6 months. They've had public hearings. They have a website that you can go on and you can give input. They're about ready to present their recommendations to the governor. The governor will take those recommendations and put it into a piece of legislation that will come to the Maryland General Assembly in January. Okay. Let me stop for 1 second. At the same time, their report will not only present the proposed districts for the House and Senate, they will also include congressional redistricting. Now, state law says that that map must be adopted by the legislature by the end of this calendar year, or the one that the governor proposes becomes law. So you're probably one of the first people to know this, but the Maryland General Assembly I just signed a petition a week ago to petition the governor to bring us into session, bring us into special session in December. We're looking at the week of December 6th through the 10th. The entire Maryland General Assembly will convene to look at and approve the congressional map. So I can follow up with you on links to that so you can see what that looks like. The last proposal that I've seen takes all of Harford County and puts all of us it was the first congressional, but they're not calling it the first because they started numbering in Western Maryland and worked east. So that's that.
And real quick, I'd appreciate that. I was going to say, like, let's follow up after the call on that.
Sure.
I do have a ton of questions.
Okay, but for the legislative redistricting, and this is very, very critical because I think there's something that a lot of people don't recognize. There are, by state constitution, there are 47 senatorial districts in Maryland. For every one senatorial district, there are 3 delegates, 1 senator to 3 delegates. Okay. But the way redistricting has happened the last 2 times, there has been this thought by the Democratic leadership, quite frankly, who said that we need to create majority-minority districts. And we need to create, so we have sub-districts in some cases, but over half of the legislature has districts that are 1 senator and 3 House members. In Harford County, we don't. In the district that I represent, we have 1 senator, we have 2 delegates, and if you live in Bel Air, you have 1. This is not a partisan statement. This is, I'm a political scientist by trade. As a fair and equal representation, I believe that the people of Maryland are being shortchanged. It is not fair to the people of Bel Air that you have 1 vote in the Maryland House of Delegates. It is not fair to the people of my district that we have 2. When I can point to almost 2/3 of the legislature who the citizens of those districts have 3. That's unequal representation. So and I'd be happy to have another call on that particular issue because I think it's very important for citizens to understand that nuance. And whether we have single member districts or triple member districts, all Marylanders should be represented by the same amount of people.
So
Great, thank you.
Referencing earlier with single member House districts that Governor Hogan initiated, is he for it or is he against it?
He wants single member districts, which again is fair, but 3-member districts are traditionally is what we've always had until the last 20 years, when people tried to create districts that for certain ideologies or for certain, and that's on both sides, safe Republican seats, safe Democratic seats, safe minority seats, safe majority seats, that kind of stuff. And I can tell you from my experience in government and my experience working from people, that is the worst thing that we can do. When you segregate people, people don't learn from one another. The best thing you can do is put a politician in a district where they have people that are multicultural, all of their demographics are different, because that's how you build consensus. You know, I use this analogy about my district. I have very, very wealthy people. I have very, very poor people. I have people that live on the water. I have people that live on the farm. I have people that live in housing projects. So to find commonality of that is difficult. You know, very often when you see the Maryland legislature, particularly in the House, when you see us vote, without thinking, people either vote red or green, because that's the majority of who they are. When I vote, I have to take a deep breath, because I've talked to as many people as I can, and sometimes, many times on issues, they're very polarized. So you have to kind of figure out, take a step back, look at their input, listen to them carefully, and take a step back and say, what's good for the whole.
Recently, the Supreme Court ruled that gerrymandering is really a state issue.
Yes.
So what is your stance on that?
On gerrymandering? Again, I mean, that's basically what I'm saying. It's wrong. It's, you know, it's politicians trying to create safe districts for themselves, or to create, or to pick their voters. You know, people say to me, what do you want? What do I want? Yeah. That's not for me to decide. I mean, I will stand for election to whatever district it is that I end up in. I mean, I think that's what our democracy is all about.
Arshad, I believe.
You have a question? Amir's hand is up.
Yeah, well, good evening. Can you hear me?
Certainly.
Oh, great. So I joined a little bit later, so I'm not sure that the question I'm going to ask, did anybody ask already?
Mhm.
So I have two questions. The one is, the first one, President Biden mandated the vaccine administration to the federal employees.
Mhm.
So, and, you know, so what do you think about it? Do you support this idea? Are you for it or against it? I mean, I need to know your views about it.
Sure. You know, I think it was a bold step, a bold but necessary step that the president took. I know, I think that there always has to be a process for people to be able to have a waiver. And I think, and you know, and the waiver may be, it has to be a real process. It's not just because I don't want to. You know, we all have to do things that we necessarily don't want to do. And at the end of the day, the president's responsibility is to keep us all safe. And this vaccine is safe. And it is something that but the unfortunate thing, and I want to be very, very clear about this. The unfortunate thing is that we stopped listening to the people who don't want to get a vaccine. And I think it's really important that we don't vilify those people, and that we really understand where and why where they're coming from. And that's the one hesitation I have about the president's order. I don't think we have been through that process. I think we have been through a process of saying, you know, this is, it's approved, and this is what we're going to do. And there is very little room for discussion or input from people. So that's my hesitation about this order, because I think we have to get people there before you do a mandate. I think, you know, I think that he was right to do it, but maybe the way he did it maybe could use a little bit of work. And I'll give you an example. I have a staff person who just gave birth to a child. Now, this is her and her husband's third child. And throughout this process, she has been, she's not an she believes in vaccinations, but she was really, because it's a later life pregnancy. And she was very, very concerned about the vaccine's effect on her unborn child. And she is still continuing to nurse her child. And the transference of anything from the vaccine to her child, an unborn child, and then now a very tiny baby. I understand that. I really do. When this all started, we set up a situation where she could work at home, and she does. And so she's able to take care of her child there. But my point is this, as an executive, you need to make hard decisions, but you need to also educate the public, and you need to get to that place before you make those hard decisions. And sadly, I don't think we have.
So, Marianne, this is Alfie. Can I ask a follow-up question on the vaccine hesitancy?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a follow-up question on the vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Alfred County, only 59% of the general public are fully vaccinated, and 80% are only got the first dose, and there is really an issue. So my question is, not only federal government, all the private hospitals and healthcare institutions are mandated 100% of the staff vaccination, not only first and second, also the booster dose for the Pfizer vaccine.
Yes.
So I think the healthcare workers have no rights, and the public has a right to refuse. And only 59% fully vaccinated in Alfred County. And my question to you is, what are we doing to encourage or educate the public?
Sure.
With 59%, that's really low. And
it is, and and let's be upfront about it, okay? Most of the elected officials in this county, including our entire county council, every single one of them wrote a letter to the chairman and president of our hospital and said, rescind your order, that healthcare workers should not have to get a vaccination. They are the Board of Health in this county. That should not be a political decision. It should be a scientific decision, right?
Mm-hmm. And
part of the reason why our vaccination level is the way it is because the narrative has been that it's about freedom. It's not about science. And I think that we've got to stop that. And we have to work, but there's a way to do it without being, again, heavy-handed. Heavy hands can come at the end when you have exhausted other means, but we need to exhaust other means. And let me give you an example. I've been working really closely with the health department to identify underserved communities that are under-vaccinated, to find out why. And I've had several calls with their outreach coordinators and things like that are on the ground, because I'm trying to understand from my own mind why somebody would feel that they shouldn't get a vaccination. Let me tell you something that I learned that is extremely disturbing to me. I've learned that in communities where this health officer has been out knocking on doors and talking to people, the number one response to them, well, there was two responses. One was religious. And when you dig down into that, and I said, what does that mean? You have a religious concern about the vaccine. Well, she really had a hard time fleshing that out, because she said the people that she talked to would say that, but they really didn't, they couldn't elaborate too much. Okay, I get that. But the second thing was this mistrust of the government and this belief that there are two vaccinations, one for white people and one for non-white people. That's in Harford County. That is what many unvaccinated or under-vaccinated community members have expressed as their number one concern. That's troubling to me. because we know that there is not a vaccination for white people and non-white people. But if that perception is out there, and the perception that we are experimenting with people, then again, who is perpetrating this and for what reason?
So, Marianne, that goes with our history, right? We have done so much of blunder in our researches and studies with the minority community.
Sure.
That is why that mistrust is there. So that requires a lot of education and awareness and programs that will educate the general public. But why I'm asking this question is because we in healthcare, we are in an ethical dilemma, right? We have to take all this vaccine to take care of the public who doesn't want to be vaccinated, and they have rights and we don't have rights, right? So so with that, I know we are not going to solve this issue here, but I really think that Harford County has not done enough to educate the public and improve the vaccination number. That's why I'm bringing it here.
I agree with you, but I just want to tell you that your Harford County Council has a dual role. It is also it is a legislative body, and it is also the Board of Health. That is how that's how I work to deal with the obesity issue. I made it a public health crisis. And it is very important that your voices are heard, and quite honestly, that I would like to see people from the medical community and the scientific community really step forward and help to educate, because you know what? I think sometimes that sadly, people speak about things that they're not maybe qualified to speak about, particularly when it comes to virology and many things in the healthcare fields. I mean, so if you have any suggestions about how we educate people and how we do better, I'm open.
Thank you, Marianne. I believe Amir still has a question left. Amir, did you want to go ahead and finish your second part of the question?
Yeah, just quickly, and it's something related to the business. And I'm a local businessman. I have, I'm in the healthcare. I am a pharmacist, and I runs my own place. And I've been running it for a while. I have one in Harford County, one in Cecil County. But right now, concerning the Harford County, that's what you're presenting. So I'm just trying to bring this thing up.
Sure.
That now I don't know how much you are. See, the problem is awareness. So we've been educating a lot of delegates and the senators on the state level and the federal level that what we're going through, and now it's a big issue. So do you have any knowledge or awareness of pharmacy benefit managers, the one they're doing to the businesses, and how they are violating a lot of things and still harming the independent local pharmacies? Now, it's been going on. We have a bill in the Annapolis, which is coming up soon with our lobbyists. So I was just wondering, do you have any idea about these issues lately which we are going through? Because I represent a forum where we have like 200 pharmacists, and we've been dealing with a lot of issues with the pharmacy benefit managers, a local level for the independent businesses. So do you have any idea about this thing before I go into detail, or just a little bit to give you an idea? Or we can set up some time so we can go through with my colleagues and they can explain a lot of things to you. I was just wondering.
Before you answer that, Amir, if you could just explain what a pharmacy benefit manager is to the rest of us, that would be great.
Yeah. So the pharmacy benefit manager is the middleman. It's the middleman who actually gives the money when we build something in for the customer, for the patient. So when we build a company, these pharmacy benefit managers, what they do is they give us the money what we supposed to get. So this is the basic responsibility, or the middle person, the middle company who does that. Now here's the problem. So these big companies, CVS especially, that is the main culprit. What they did is they bought those PBMs. Huge violation. I mean, how could you possibly buy somebody who is paying you? So you bought the company. Now, if I build something, they take my money, like they pay me, $1 and pay CVS $100. That's the difference for the same billing, for the same thing. So the crooks are, what they're doing is they're taking all my money to push me to the wall so I can get out of the business. So they buy my pharmacy or keep me out of the business or run me out of the business. This is what PBM is doing. Pharmacy benefit manager, basically, this is what they do. So CVS, what they did, just like people have, insurance cards, it says Caremark on it. It says Optum on it. It says, Express Scripts on it. These are the PBMs. These are the pharmacy benefit managers. What they do is when you build something, they give you the money and they decide that what money I should get. So this is just to, tell the audience that what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So what they're doing is basically they're killing us. They're killing independent pharmacies. And every year, multiple pharmacies are just like closing down or they're selling their businesses because they can't survive. So this is a huge issue at the federal level and at the state level now, because I don't know if you have an idea about Supreme Court hearing about a case, which now they give state the power to reform the PBMs. And this is the bill in the Congress in Annapolis coming up soon in the most current hearing. So I was wondering if you have any idea about this local business, because independent business is the backbone of the community. I know my patients, my people more than these corporate businesses. I tell you, they walk in, I know who is Mr. Tom, Dick, and Harry. I know everybody, and they discuss more time with me, spend more time with me than anybody. And especially if you go to the corporate business, you're a number. Believe me, you're a number. You don't know who you are. They're just here for the business, and that's it, following corporate policies and things. So, I mean, do you have any awareness or anything about that? I mean, do you know anything? Because I really want, if you go in there in the Annapolis, at least we have to have some voices. I mean, we have some, but the more, the more the merrier. So this is what, we've been going through in the business, and it's really hurting us. It's really hurting us.
Amir, yes, I do. I know I'm very, very familiar with it, and it is extremely frustrating because you're right. I mean, and let me separate this just a little bit because there's two issues here. One, it's killing small business, right?
Absolutely.
The second issue is healthcare and the delivery of healthcare.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's a part of the problem in getting the resolve that you're looking for. My best friend's father has been a pharmacist, owned his own business for 50 years. Wow. And so I hear about this every opportunity I get. He gets to talk to me and explain the intricacies of this business and how over the last really decade, if I'm right here, how this has been growing, and these managers have been taking a bigger and bigger bite out of small pharmacies.
Absolutely.
And I think that a couple of things here that in the pharmacists are very well organized. They come in for their pharmacy day every year. They send even students around to talk to us and everything like that. But education of legislators needs to be done all year long. And these kind of issues are, unfortunately, since a lot of people don't really understand them, they end up being discussed almost by the lobbyist. And look, the lobbyist for the big chains are there's a lot more of them than for small local pharmacies, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think part of the challenge is to find allies, and who those allies are, like those who represent small business, those who represent community development, those who represent equitable distribution of healthcare at the community level. So I would be happy, Amir, if we could talk offline. I would be happy to sit around a table with you, with some of your folks, and really dig down in this issue. I've got a lot of ideas that I think might be helpful, but it is
Yeah,
become
definitely.
a very, very, this issue needs to really have a spotlight on it and what it means to the delivery of healthcare in communities. So I'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely. I will definitely, I will set up something with you and I'll bring some of my colleagues together,
Right.
and then we'll chit chat about that, because
Okay.
it's very important, because this is really like getting to a point where it's very, very like
Yeah.
people are struggling. So,
Absolutely.
definitely we'll work something out. Yes. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maria and I have a question from one of our citizens.
Okay.
She wants to know how is county providing adequate service or ensuring that we receive adequate healthcare. Upper Chesapeake is short-staffed and their pediatric ER has closed.
Yes.
The wait line in ER seems to be ridiculously long, and nobody wants to travel to Hopkins.
Yeah.
She wants to know what can you do to serve the citizen of our county better.
You know, this issue is very near and dear to my heart. I fought, I've been fighting for the last 7 years to stop the closure of Hartford Memorial Hospital. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that the hospital has to be at that location, but that we have a full service hospital more than just what we have in Bel Air. I listen to ambulance calls every day. And every day I hear Hartford and Upper Chesapeake on red and yellow, which means that you cannot take a cardiac patient. You cannot take a that you're on reroute, which means that you have to take a patient in an ambulance to the nearest hospital. As far as I'm concerned, a disservice was done to this entire community, because when when the decision was made by Upper Chesapeake, or by the University of Maryland, to close Hartford Memorial Hospital, it was to replace not a full service hospital, and also to delicense a full service hospital with beds for a special psychiatric facility and an acute care. I mean, basically I'm trying to think of the proper name for it, but it's basically a one night stay care center.
A standalone ER.
Thank you. A standalone medical. Thank you. Thank you. Phew, I was having a hard time with that one. But the point is, this community's health is growing. And time again, and I can show you the bills, and I can show you, and I encourage you to look at the hearings of the bills that I put into the legislature. And I want you to look very carefully at who opposed it, because it tells a lot. It tells that people were more concerned about the influence of a very, very big medical system, more so than they were about the health care of our community. And our community is suffering. And one of the things that people fail to realize when they were looking at the delivery of healthcare, they always looked at Hartford Memorial and said, that only services basically Aberdeen, Havre de Grace. They never looked at the people in Cecil County that it also serviced, and it also was a backup to Upper Chesapeake and Bel Air. Right now, we have none. You know, one of the bills that I tried to pass that said they could not delicense these beds in Havre de Grace until the other facility was open and running. I could not get that bill passed. I wonder why. I mean, if you really think about that, it is such a disservice to our community. And it, you know, I think that the shoe is about ready to fall, if you will, because over and over again, the Maryland Healthcare Commission continues to take a blind eye to this issue. And let me tell you how very egregious this really was. When we were in the very beginnings of this pandemic. We were in March, April of last year. Think back to that. The governor had closed school, closed all businesses, the country was shutting down, whatever. The Maryland Healthcare Commission entertained the request by the University of Maryland to de-license the beds we have at Havre de Grace Hospital. At that same agenda, they were doing temporary licenses for hospital beds at the convention center in Baltimore City and for additional beds at the fairgrounds in Prince George's County. That's unconscionable at that phase of the epidemic to think that we would de-license beds. So this issue is very important to me. I'm not done with it. I don't know, I have accepted the fact that this hospital will close. I'm working very closely with the city. I've gotten some money for them to study what would be the highest and best reuse of that facility. I want to partner with Upper Chesapeake to do that, to make sure that that facility is not a white elephant in the middle of this. They have 9 acres in the middle of downtown Havre de Grace. It's very important that redevelopment occurs, that we look at the site that they previously had outside of Havre de Grace at 155, that site is turned over into the open market so that it can be reused for the highest and best use of the public. And also that we look at expanding services beyond what they have done in Aberdeen and make that a real medical facility. So that's my goal looking forward. You can't fight the battles of the past, but you can learn from them. And
So Marianne, what would you advise to our members and our citizens? What should they do besides bringing to your attention? What else they can do? Can they write to email it to the senators, their local officials? What's your suggestion?
well, I mean, part of the problem with this whole issue was that the county executive wasn't on board in supporting us. The county council, sitting as the Board of Health, wasn't either. And so, particularly early on in my first term in the legislature, people would ask me, "Isn't this just Marianne's problem?" It's required. It really truly is bringing the issue to other elected officials and holding them accountable. The question becomes why? Why? If healthcare, the delivery and access to healthcare is important to you, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to address the issues of your 2 existing medical facilities are always constantly on red and yellow and on reroute? Why? And what are we doing about it?
Thank you, Marianne. We want to also be respectful of time. Arshad, I believe we have about 6 or 7 minutes left. I believe Mustafa had mentioned he also had another question or so.
Sure.
I actually do not. I'm good. Thank you. Sorry.
I don't see any other hands raised at this time, Wish.
Okay. If I may just say one thing while we're waiting for another question. One of the bills that I'm drafting this year that I think you might be interested in deals with the establishments of municipal governments. As I had mentioned before, there are 157 municipalities in the state of Maryland. There has not been a new municipality in the state of Maryland in almost 30 years. Begs the question of why. The why is because a law was passed that says that if a group of people want to organize and create a municipality, that they can petition their local government, which would be the county government in our case. And the county government is then required to do a fiscal analysis to see if that is, to see what the cost benefit is. And that's it. There's no requirement for them to act upon a petition of the people. So if, let's say, a community in Abingdon or a community in Edgewood decided, hey, you know what, we want to be like Aberdeen and Havre de Grace and Bel Air, we want to be a municipality. And they decide what their boundaries, a group of citizens decide what the boundaries are going to be. And they meet the requirements of the state law, and they get, let's say, 75% of the registered voters in that area to petition the county. County doesn't have to do anything. That's wrong. People have the right to organize. People have the right to self-govern. My bill is very simple. It says that if a threshold of 40% of the registered voters in an area petition their county, that the county must act. Vote it up or down. Really simple. Don't just let people, don't let people go through the motions to say that they want to self-govern and then say, we don't have to do anything about that.
Wow, this is new. I mean, I was unaware of this. And this is something, of course, we can raise awareness and inform our citizens. Just out of curiosity, has the resident of Abingdon or Edgewood, for that matter,
Okay.
approached you for this bill?
Sure. Well, we find, some people want to be in a municipality, but when you're at the state level and even at the county level, it's important to have, in my case, I have two municipalities, Aberdeen and Havre de Grace. I work very closely with those local legislators to determine what's important in their community. They have the eyes and ears of the community every day, so it's an opportunity that so often is missed.
Thank you very much. We are very close to being 9 p.m.
Yes.
Does anyone else has any question?
Real quick, Marianne, were you District F when you were a county councilwoman?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Were you District F when you represented?
I was.
The okay.
Yes, I was. Yes.
And if constituents wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Delegate Marianne@gmail.com.
Great.
And
Thank you.
And if you go on my website, mariannelisanti.com, as I was talking before we were taping, but I'd redeveloped it just before COVID, and it is super user friendly. And if you want me to send a birthday wish to your grandmother because she has a milestone birthday, you can fill out a form and do that, because we love doing that kind of stuff. If you have an unemployment complaint, you can fill out a form and give us all the information about that. If you want to set a meeting up with me, you fill out a form and all of it comes right to my phone. So we try to make it really easy, and we like to do these kind of calls so that I can be as accessible as possible, and also get the information I need to help people with whatever issue they have of concern.
Thank you very much, Marianne. If no one has any questions, first of all, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time. I'm sure many of us will reach out to you privately via email as well. Stay in touch. I'm sure together we can do a lot more.
Wait, before we wrap it up, I don't know if Alfie Rahman, Mrs. Alfie Rahman had a question. She had her hand up here for a while, so.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do. I just want an update on Marianne, your support on the CBD products to be administered in school by the school nurse if it is medically advised. And I know you were working on that. And is there any update? I
did. And let me just quickly, I know I'll be cautious of time, but this issue came to my attention. This is about students in Maryland public schools who have already been granted a medical marijuana or medical cannabis license. Okay, so the state of Maryland said, you've met all the requirements, and here is your permission to have medical cannabis for whatever reason. This issue came to me from a constituent. I actually met them at a restaurant one night. I heard they were sitting very close to me, and I overheard them crying to each other, really, because their child, who was has a very severe illness has found relief with medical cannabis, but there was no mechanism for this to be administered within the school system. So I came up with what I thought was a solution. The bill was called Connor's Courage. I wrote the bill that basically said this. If we're and keep in mind, I'm not, I realize that it is federally illegal, but in the state of Maryland, we've decided that we are going to allow medical cannabis. So we're not really re-arguing that issue. We're saying that if it's legal and minors can have it, how do they have access to it when they are in school? So all my bill really did was say, okay, we need to have a policy for this, because we administer all kinds of medicines in the school system, some experimental, some regulated, but we don't have a process for this. So what it did is the bill required the state Board of Education and the Nurses Association. They were very helpful with me on this, and the administrators and the legal people, all of them to come together and develop a policy for how this would be administered, stored, and protected in the confines of the public school system. The bill passed. I'm very excited about that. It's a landmark bill in the country for how minors can have access to their legally permissible cannabis.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, we'll wrap it up now, but thank you for joining us. And as I was saying, we'll stay in touch, and there's a lot we can do together.
Absolutely.
And we would love to see you again on our forum, as well as we would love to have you visit our mosque here.
I would love to.
As well. So thank you once
I've been to
again.
mosque many times, but I would love to. I would love to.
We would love to have you at our mosque. So thank you once again, and assalamu alaikum, and good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Have a good night.
You too. Oh, thank you.